Oh, sweet Jesus. Okay,
There we
we're
go.
back.
How
All
are
right.
we doing?
Oh
Are we
my
alive?
God.
Let's start again.
I was dispense with it. I was saying that I sound like someone who smoked 40 cigarettes a day for the last 40 years.
Yeah. Also, we were talking about gremlins and ghosts just before we started. We shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, well, that's because we were hearing some noises, if we're being honest.
The ghosts in the
The
machine.
ghosts, yeah, they exist.
So why would that have happened? Like, technically, explain that to me.
No,
I know we don't do air checks on the air, but I mean, like, I'm perplexed. We did everything that we normally do.
We did everything we normally did.
Yeah.
It was a website issue. It seems.
Oh,
Wasn't us. We just we just refreshed.
this is why people reserve the most hatred and the most love for the IT department. Have you noticed that in any
Sure.
company, right?
Yeah.
The IT department get to do whatever they want, but if they step out and the things don't work,
You're fucked.
yeah, you are like beyond fired.
You need the IT department. That's the thing. Like, hate them or love them, you need them to
And they know
log into stuff and log out of stuff.
And they know that they are needed.
Oh yeah. And they take advantage of that.
So, all right, we've got quite a lot to do this morning. Believe it or not, there's quite a lot to talk about. Some people have been talking smack about us, and some people have been talking smack about Floyd Mayweather. So yesterday I posted after Ryan told me on the show yesterday morning. He said, Floyd Mayweather went to, what was it, Gucci or Louis Vuitton? Or one of them. Gucci. Okay, in Santon.
Yeah.
Spent like, what did they say it was?
$7 million.
Okay.
Rena thought it was rand.
Yeah, if it was rand, it would have been more believable.
That's the thing, right?
But I got a message from someone. Now, this might also be bullshit because I don't know. This person might be very random and they might be making it up. This person said, it's not true. Okay, it is really not true. First of all, Mapelo, who listens to the show, replied to me and said, a few $1 million in our economy spent here. Great. Yeah, but I don't think that necessarily stays. The people who own that Gucci store are taking it elsewhere. They're not going to keep it here.
Yeah.
Anyway, someone said to me in the comments here that apparently I work in the luxury retail space, she said, just confirmed only a shoe was bought, one shoe.
Which costs?
Now, either this person
There's no way it costs
struggles
7
with
million.
English and they mean a pair of shoes. Because what the hell would you do with one shoe unless you're buying it for Oscar Pistorius?
Too
Right?
soon.
But no, it's not too soon.
Oh.
So what are we doing with one shoe, Floyd? But let's just take this person's word for it. Maybe they do know something. Maybe they know someone at the Gucci store or
So
whatever.
he just bought a pair of shoes. Fine.
Right.
If he bought a pair of shoes, apparently 17,000, and it was for ladies. It wasn't for himself. So it was for some scabare she's treating, right? But I think people are so keen to hop on these celebrities and either praise and worship them or make them look stupid. That this is probably I'm gonna assume Floyd Mayweather did not spend anything close to what they say.
Yeah, no.
And these are like supposedly reputable news networks. You know, the media does itself no favors by lying like this.
Yeah.
But look, Gareth, it's Floyd Mayweather. He is known to
Floyd
flash
money,
his money,
Mayweather.
Floyd money, you know, and you know what I mean? He is known to go around, spend all of his rack, treat everyone. He doesn't go to a place and just like chill. So it also is kind of believable.
Yeah.
Well,
You know?
He's always known to carry $1 million in a bag.
Hard,
Wherever he goes.
cold
all right,
cash.
everywhere.
So let's assume it's not true because I don't think it is.
Right.
Because I don't think they have enough stuff in the store.
Yeah,
to sell-
125 million rands. No.
Yeah, and that's what Bakabunta did the quick calculation, and there's no way that he could have spent that much money in one quick visit.
Yeah.
Plus, if he did, he'd have to have gone out with more bags. Instead, what you saw is the same thing you saw at the airport with him. I don't know who in our police is so corrupt that they will send you however many police officers you need if you're a celebrity. But look at this. This is Floyd at the airport. Now, even if you are willing to believe the best of Floyd in that Gucci story, here is an example of why these motherfuckers must go back to wherever they're from and stop pretending they're adding value. Because look at how many cops, just look at how many cops are in this video, right? It's a little short 5 seconds or something, 13 seconds of him walking around the airport in Johannesburg. And there are more police there than there were in Marikana. Okay? Look at can I just say he looks like a clown? He's like wearing yellow pants, a blue jacket, a red cap. He looks like a Lego man.
He's like, he took color block to a whole nother level.
So, all right, if I'm going to believe the worst about Floyd Mayweather, which a lot of people will, then he is exactly the kind of conspicuous consumption, flash your money asshole that he wants people to think he is.
Yeah.
And I don't have no time for people like that. It's almost like they're a little baby crying out for attention. It's like, well, love
Look at me.
If I spend all this money, then someone will notice me. Well,
No, but it's also South African culture. They see Floyd coming a mile away. Let's just mob.
Well, why?
I don't know.
What's wrong with us then? Because
we ain't shit.
No, but
we
okay,
like things, Gareth. We like it when overseas people recognize us.
We get Hanan on here once a week, right? And he helps us to understand the basic incentives and drivers behind the way people behave and the way they think and the way they feel.
Yeah.
And I want to know why it is that we're impressed with this shit. What kind of lowly scum are we that we're prepared to watch someone else spend money on not us and somehow get a thrill out of that? Like, what's that all about? You know, when like when a guy goes to the strip club and he does this with the hookers and he throws like money around. And you're like, why would the rest of the people who are around him, his friends, supposedly.
Goons.
Why would these people, because that's what they are, they're goons. Why would those people be like, wow, yeah. Are they really just pathetic observers hoping that some of that cash will fall on them?
Yes.
That's it.
There's literally no better explanation. We literally and sadly don't see ourselves. We don't believe in ourselves enough. We don't invest in ourselves enough. So we wait for people from other countries who are faking it till they make it, and then they make it, and then they come here, and we get impressed by the most ridiculous, dumb stuff.
Yeah.
That's just the bottom line of it all. If we took that energy and we can just put it back into ourselves, we'd actually do a thing here.
Because Floyd Mayweather is not paying the cops. We pay the cops. We citizens of this country, there are women walking around on the streets of Johannesburg right now in danger.
All the time.
They won't get one of those cops to come and like chaperone them to their
everything
place
is a
of residence.
Show. It's all just a show. I mean, look at Biggie Kele. Biggie Kele will arrive at a crime scene or at an incident just to be like, I'm here, I'm arrived, don't worry, I'm on top of it.
Well,
it's all just PR.
Becky Taylor is like a public side Floyd Mayweather, but he's also much, much less useful because like Floyd Mayweather would be, and by the way, if you are as dangerous as Floyd Mayweather was in the boxing ring, you don't need so much protection if you ask me.
No, but the thing is, for me, it's just like you're drawing so much tension by having like 8 goons rock up and they got bigger guns than our police, which is hilarious.
That's become a thing, right? So I know rich people in this country who think it's necessary to have this huge security detail. And I say to them, you may be rich, but nobody knows who the hell you are in South Africa.
Is anybody trying to kill you? Like,
probably not. I mean, I know that there are certain people who've been involved in dodgy things.
Sure.
And, you know, there's these families who are notorious for whatever reason. I saw Glenn Agliati, by the way, died the other day. Did you see that?
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was in the news.
Damn.
Anyway, so, I mean, I always ask, if you really want safety, be inconspicuous. Just drive around in a normal car. Like if you get in a Toyota Corolla, people are going to think you're an Uber.
No one is no one's going to be like, oh, there's that rich motherfucker in that car.
You could have $5 million in your boot. Okay. And if you're in a Corolla, no one's going to think anything's going on there.
Exactly.
What are you, stupid? Someone needs to sit these people down and say to them, listen, Floyd, why don't you do this in a country where the majority of the people aren't poor? Because it's also really insulting to see you splash, even if it was 17,000 Rand on a pair of shoes. You know, I'm not the kind of person who'll ever criticize rich people for doing what they want with their money. Because I think it's fine.
Sure.
But like there's something tasteless about almost thumbing your nose at these people. Like, you know, there are going to be cleaners in Sandton who are they won't earn 17,000 Rand this year. Okay. They might get close to that, but for the whole year, and it's a pair of shoes to him. Sure. And even if someone believes that it was $7 million that he spent, we have to talk about why we have these attitudes to money because it really, really upsets me. And it's not going to get us anywhere. It's not going to make us better. Know what I mean?
I'm just waiting for.
I mean, you were impressed. You came running to me.
What?
You couldn't wait to tell me about Floyd Mayweather spending this money.
No, I wasn't worried about the money. I'm
worried about you
glad
now.
that-
I'm thinking I must book you some
Should we
sessions.
talk? Do you
with
want to
Dr.
talk about
Hanan,
it? The thing is, Gareth, like for them, it doesn't matter. Like they've hustled, they've worked their way to the top. Floyd Mayweather is not responsible for poor people anywhere in the world. He's not going to stop and say, oh, you cleaners, here's $5. He's going to go out there and splurge because it's part of his brand. If you call yourself Mr. Money, you're going to behave like that.
It's this thing of like, I'm here to visit Africa.
Africa.
Well,
I need to come see Africa.
My ancestors
Well,
were all
look-
from here.
well, you want to see something? This is going to piss a bunch of people off. So, Akon has got some kind of show apparently.
No,
Look at this guy.
I think it was interviewed.
All right,
yeah.
so this is as bad. It's not
No,
worse.
it's the same thing.
It's the
It's
same
literally
thing,
the
right.
same thing.
Same thing. It's like ignorance, and you're thumbing your nose at people. Now,
Yeah.
I mean, take a look.
And what's crazy, some certain parts of Africa, of South Africa, the white folks are the ones in the ghettos.
Yeah.
If you go to South Africa, the richest people in South Africa are the black ones.
Oh, wow.
The
Like
white people, it's
mulatto,
almost
mix
like a
is,
flip.
is like is in the
Yeah,
worst
matter of
position
fact,
now.
this is the Netflix.
In Cape Town, in the flats,
Bro,
Cape Flats.
Johannesburg, like everywhere you go, there's areas where there's poor people, but the poorest areas are the poor parts where the white folks are.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a matter of fact, it's a Netflix special on that. It's a Netflix
What's it
special on
called?
that. I gotta remember the name though.
Okay.
But if you Google, if you search South Africa on there,
Wow.
it'll pop up.
All right, so
Lying unprovoked.
Okay, but let's just look at this. So,
Unprovoked.
so there is a documentary about like a white slum in Pretoria where there are a substantial number of people who are absolutely living in abject poverty. They are just like the people in almost every township
Exactly.
in the country. But
Small percentage.
it's a large group of people. But I think what got Netflix's attention about this and why a documentary was made is because you're not used to seeing the white people living in a ghetto.
Yeah.
You're not used to seeing the white people in a squatter camp, and that's what they're living in. So let's just be clear about this. And again, this is why Akon, I never say to people stay in your lane, but talking to Fresh yesterday again, and going over it in my head, we used to, before you switched on the mic, you'd have to know
Research.
a little bit about what you're talking about.
Sure.
Here he is, just like making the most banal simplification of what goes on in this country. First of all, you can tell he's got the most like cursory idea of what actually happens here. He's bound to piss off a whole lot of people who think it's a really good thing that black people are the majority of the suffering people in this country. Because that's what, if you are somehow upset and offended by Akon saying that, you have to explain to me, just like I asked Ryan and Lebang to explain to me now about why like people might want to flock towards Floyd Mayweather and his spending,
Sure.
his conspicuous consumption, his gross attachment to and attaching his own self-worth to what he's got in his wallet. I'm going to ask the same question now of two groups of people. First of all, if you're one of those people who is genuinely upset, like you're annoyed, you're incensed by Akon daring to say that white people might be in a similar situation, even if it's just in one place, right? Even if it's only 1,000 by comparison with the millions of black people who are suffering, which is true.
Yes.
You have to ask yourself, why would that upset you? Why would you want black people to retain the mantle of victimhood so much? Why would that be the important driving factor for you? That's the one group of people. The other group of people is the group who will say, oh, but there are white people suffering. Nobody said there weren't.
Yeah, the latter group are the ones making the most noise right now, which is part of the problem, right? But the former, I think it's not so much we want black people to continue to see themselves as just that.
No, but it's become like a badge of honor for those people.
No, it's more like, dude, you're spreading misinformation, Akon. It's exactly that.
Yeah, to what damaging effect? There's none. He's just talking a lot of shit.
But the thing is, right?
He's
If you
talking
actually,
a lot of shit.
if you check out images of Akon, 'cause I looked at the thread under all the tweets about
Yeah.
this, and he hangs out with the politicians.
He
So
has
you-
no cooking clue what's actually happening here.
If you're hanging
It's
out with the
all.
politicians,
That's it.
you kind of have an idea of what kind of life he's used to when he comes
And
here.
by the way,
Sure.
I mean, whoever it is with him on the show, I just don't understand how dumb that guy must be, because he's like suddenly, Cape Town in the Cape Flat.
No,
Like,
they
no,
also have no clue.
there may be 2 white people in the Cape Flats, all right? Maybe 2.
Yeah,
And-
literally. And the rest of them are there by Camps Bay.
And that's-
Literally the
and
rest of them.
And that's because Cape Town still very much enforces the Group Areas Act. But
And is the
we want-
most unequal city
but-
literally on the globe.
Like
Like
no, in this country,
in this
there's-
country,
there's,
we're the most unequal country, aren't we?
no, not by a
No?
long shot. No.
Huh?
No,
Okay,
no.
I must also
There
fact check.
are Indian billionaires who've built their own penthouse houses on top of high-rise buildings that are absolutely the most incredible dwelling places humans have ever had. And right outside their front door on the street level are people who live in a puddle. So,
It's giving Cape Town.
you know, I do want to say that I just love, I love how people will immediately like jump to the defense of their side of this. And I think it's so dumb. Why would we be in any way rejoicing over which group suffers more?
Yeah, none of it is
Like, it's so
yeah.
ugly. There are so many people in this country who are suffering at the moment, mostly due to the very piss poor way that our economy's been managed by the government. Now, because the majority of the people in our government happen to be black people, doesn't mean that they necessarily went out of their way to punish black people who are the majority suffering people
Sure.
in this country.
No, that I
right?
agree with. Yeah.
In fact, you could argue the opposite.
Mm.
But that there are white people suffering is horrible too.
It
And if-
definitely suffering in
And
general.
if anybody would go, well, we can't talk about the suffering whites because it somehow negates the story of the suffering blacks, is just
No.
that's so evil. It's
Yeah.
like so
Uh-uh.
so wicked. Like, why would we want anyone to suffer? We should be disgraced and disgusted and humiliated by the fact that some international singers got our story so wrong
So wrong.
that all he can talk about is how impoverished a certain group is. What we would love to have in this world is for an idiot like Akon, God bless him for his successes, but damn him for his ignorance. It's for him to be talking about what a wonderful country we are.
And you know
You
what?
really think that anyone listening to that's going to go, that's where I'm booking my next holiday?
What's interesting about Akon is that he's actually doing quite a lot for the African continent.
Yeah,
He's
he
one
is.
of the few
So you're
artists that
saying
are
he's-
really
He
That-
should be more informed.
that's about
He
it.
should be.
That he really should be more informed because he's one of the few that are actually doing good work. But beyond that, it's what we said earlier about this whole Floyd Mayweather situation. If you take that energy that you use on complaining and saying, "Oh my God," but don't say that about us. Take that energy and just put it in yourself so you can get out of whatever position you're
Well-
in. If you're unhappy with it, then you'll be fine. But all you do is hover on about what an Akon is saying or what a Floyd
People
Mayweather
do.
is doing.
I mean, we're talking about it this morning. So Sanella
Yeah.
says, I blame Akon's best friend, Tebow Touch. Man was lied to. This sounds like a classic Tebow Touch exaggeration. Look no further than his
Oi.
accent.
Oi.
Oh my God. Akon should do his research or just fuck off. He's ignorant and stupid.
Right.
Opinions, who the fuck cares? Most media outlets also spreading misinformation. That's also true.
He's trying
That's
to
true.
he's trying
Yeah.
to build Akon City.
Okay.
I wonder how that's
So-
going.
It's been a while since I've heard what's happening
So-
with Akon City.
Yeah.
The name of the show is Drink Champs. That explains it all. So they're
Yeah.
often drunk and high on the show. Maybe that would explain it. I mean, you know, it's like those drunk people at a braai. That's what it is. So I don't know the show,
Mm.
but if it's anything like the braais I've been to, where you end up with the black dude, the white dude, the colored dude, the Indian dude around the braai, and they're all like, "Yo, you know, this country's gone to shit, eh?" The other one's like, "Yeah, I agree. It's really shit, eh? It's the ANC."
Mm.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm so sick of this shit, man. Hey, you know, we're trying to make a buck out here as hard as nails, man. Yeah, you know, and my ma hasn't got a job. My sister hasn't got a job. I've struggled to find a job. I'm so cock, man. And then they all go and eat some meat and have a drink, and,
And
then
life goes on.
they calm down.
Mm. Life
Fucking hell.
continues.
Anyway, look, I just want to say, if you have a victim mentality, if you are somehow proud of people who look like you suffering, you've got a major, major problem.
Sure.
You need to go and see Dr. Hanan. I know he's booked up fully.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he
for like
might-
the next year, he's
Find-
completely unavailable.
Find like a lower down version of Dr. Hanan if he's too expensive and too busy, but go and sit with someone and talk it over,
Mm.
because you are not allowed to make your inferiority complex other people's problem, whether it's buying $7 million worth of stuff, if that is
Mm.
what you do, in order to impress people you don't know, or if it's because you're upset that some American uninformed celebrity says things that make you feel like you can't own some sort of narrative, which is not good for you anyway.
Mm.
Either of those, just terrible examples from Floyd Mayweather And
And
Akon.
Akon.
Let's just all take stock of that this morning. We'll feel better about ourselves. How about it?
I'm just waiting for Becky Taylor to come out the woodwork to try and introduce himself and be like,
Oh, no,
I'm here to protect you.
He'll inject his way into this somehow.
He'll
Yeah,
try to make it about him.
with my hat which Floyd bought for me. Jesus. Yeah, I mean, yesterday, Fresh said it. Bagabantu was listening carefully. I like apples. The world goes, what's wrong with oranges? Yeah. See?
Yeah.
It'd be like that.
Dum. Gareth, it's the same with Drickus du Plessis' story after he made a statement about being the first African residing champion. Everyone jumped on the race bandwagon and brought up our history. Listen,
Yeah.
That's gonna happen.
it's
No.
gonna
It's
because,
gonna happen.
because people want to own certain words. And let me remind you, this is why cultural appropriation is the dumbest thing ever. And we've spoken about this too. It's like if I decide to do my hair like Lebang, am I appropriating her culture, or am I actually emulating her?
Embracing it.
Emulating because I'm actually in awe or in respect. Because why would I do that to myself if I thought it was something shitty? If I wanted hair like yours, and I might, I think I would
mean,
look ridiculous. but
I think there's definitely a way to do it. You know, some people are quite clearly emulating it because they think it's really cool and they want to be a part of it.
what
because
a compliment!
you know, as a compliment. But other people are very clearly just tanning their skin to be something they're not, changing their hair
or lightening their hair,
whatever the
getting
case is.
contact lenses. But
You can call it whatever you want, but they do that with ill intention to come across
but
as
how do you
something
know-
they're not, for maybe
So-
like especially social media influencers, just for example's sake,
or slay queens.
or slay queens. It's all for the love of money, essentially. You put yourself for something you're not so that you can maybe be popular. For example, remember when Miley Cyrus came out, like back in the day, there was a time when she was just doing hip hop music, jumping onto twerking or whatever the culture things were happening. And quickly, when it came out of fashion, she just went right back to, her hair was now straight and she was just
Back to what
plain
she
old.
knew.
It almost seemed like she just put on
I can't wait
a costume.
I can't wait for your girl Taylor Swift to start dreadlocking. Then we'll know some shit's going down.
dreadlocking.
That doesn't get exciting.
And it is what it is. Just
So a lot of people saying if I ended up with Lebang's hair, I would probably be smoking weed. Rasta G. Gareth hasn't changed his hair since 1873. He's not going to change it now. Hey, vampires like me have learned the hard way. Those kind of changes draw you the wrong sort of attention. But again, like, where do you draw the line? So if cultural appropriation, if I think what Lebang does with her hair is really fucking cool, and I decide to emulate that, right? And maybe it works for me, maybe it doesn't. It might make me look really awesome. It might make me look like a stupid, like, imitation of you. But how's that any different to women who will like go and get a BBL because they want to look like the Kardashians, or women who buy makeup because some celebrity on the TV wears that makeup? How's that any different?
Kardashians are part of the problem.
How's that
Real
any-
talk, they're part of the problem.
And let me tell you, the makeup and beauty industry, you know this because
huge industry.
they make more money. I mean, if you look at the number of people who are in the Forbes top 50 and you see how many of those families come from L'Oreal, Maybelline.
Yeah.
What are the other ones? There's the other big Chanel. All of these kinds of big like beauty and fashion and makeup industry.
Yeah.
What was the other one? There's the something with a B, and this family was they have so much money. And now I can't think who it is now. So it's definitely a makeup brand, but the family surname starts with a B. Anyway, these people have made absolute tons of money, basically playing on people's desire to look a little bit better or to look like someone else.
To just enhance. They tell you that makeup enhances how you already look, of which I completely agree with. I'm not against that.
I'm not against makeup.
Do your thing.
Sure.
Do your thing. Like, own it, whatever the case. But there's just, again, there's a way. There's literally a way. So where the Kardashians come in is the way you look is not the way you're supposed to look. How you look is how I look. Go get a BBL, get straight hair, get more expensive clothes, do the slay queen thing. Whatever you need to do, you have to look like this. And then as soon as they kind of get over it, they just they just like go back to their normal lives and take out the braids and take out the cornrows and even go as far as taking out the BBL. Now they're just normal Becky from next door. It's like,
Well,
why are we doing this?
I also wonder, like, I don't love everything about the way I look, right?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
I've said, I
yeah,
joke,
I'm sure very few people do.
I joke all the time that I get to the mirror, especially at like 4:30 in the morning, and I go, oh, for fuck's sake, is this all I've got to work with?
Come on, God.
Yeah, exactly. But if you had to dislike yourself to a 70, 80, 90% quotient,
Yeah.
you got some problems, man. If you looked at these people who go for surgery, I saw this guy on Instagram yesterday who tried to make himself look like David Beckham. I have to find you this picture.
There's many of
Holy
those
shit.
things. But
He's a fat. He doesn't look anything like David Beckham, but
no.
he spent an absolute fortune on plastic surgery, hair implants, all the rest of it. And he doesn't look anything like him. I mean, it's just so sad.
Own,
it's
guys,
so sad.
To each,
But it's
his
kind of
own.
like Kylie Jenner with her look, because she got implants and did her face up.
very early. Yeah.
And then there's a girl that looks exactly like her but naturally. And so now everyone's arguing she's trying to look like Kylie or whatever, and it's like, no, she had the face
Who's
first.
the hot?
She was
which
born with it.
which one's the hottest Kardashian? Because I can never figure out with Kylie and Kendall which one it is.
Kendall's the smaller one.
It's Chris. It's the mother.
Mother's the hot one.
I said it.
Or the
it's
mother's
the
the
mother.
one doing this.
The mother's
No.
the hot one, and she's the one who's literally orchestrated their entire lives. Like she planned the whole thing, so she may as well get the award for the hot one.
Look at
But
this.
also, Gareth, it's media and society.
Of course
let's,
it is.
let's not lie. I mean, they are literally telling us what we must look like and what we must sound like, and if we step out of that box, then we are wrong and we are outcasts. And
At the same time, someone like you is so individual. You don't give a shit about that
no,
stuff.
I don't give a rat's
And
ass.
that's why you are noticeable. And,
Sure.
and I mean, that's not true for a lot of people.
Mm-mm.
They're so desperate to fit in, actually. Look at this dude.
Who's
this
he
is-
supposed to be
This is a
again?
guy, this
David
guy,
Beckham.
this guy's trying to
Yeah.
look like David Beckham. I mean,
Oh no,
it's not going to happen, my brother.
no.
And you might look a little better if you didn't look so weird. Like he's had his nose done. He has this bizarre kind of facial hair, which doesn't really resemble David Beckham because he looks like he hasn't even grown facial
He
hair.
kind of looks like the doll of the Chucky doll without
Yeah.
the scars.
I mean, I feel bad. It's like that Rachel Dolezal woman who was going around telling everyone she was black. You remember her?
yeah. Oh no, she
And-
got cancelled with the quickness.
And then you get the people who are trans-abled. This came up on the
So
show.
many.
Yeah.
I can't keep up with these groups anymore.
So the trans-abled people, the ones who actually want to like have a missing limb, or they want to
yes.
or they want to be quadriplegic or paraplegic.
uh,
I mean, they hurt themselves on purpose.
I've actually got the perfect video.
What?
I wish I could actually I want to actually play it because it's literally like the exact thing that we're talking about. But you guys have to just see this. It'll explain everything that we're saying now.
Bring it on.
That's the camera.
Yeah. Let me try and hold that thing up
Okay,
here.
hold on. So,
Just hold it up
it's
here.
basically like
Okay, it's a short clip, so you
It's
can
very
take a look
short.
at it. All right, are you ready? There's a big fat guy.
big
on the
big
street,
dude.
right?
Just press play there.
Oh wow. That is so right.
Right? So,
So,
this
yeah.
this guy just kind of this girl walks up to this guy and she goes, please rate me on a scale of 1 to 10. And the guy goes, whatever. And then she goes, a 1. So what do you think I'm ugly? He goes, no, you're not ugly. I've seen people like you everywhere. You're just unoriginal.
She does. She looks like that, like sort of blonde,
Blonde.
like South American looking
skinny-ish.
kind of, like
yeah.
super made up, like super straight hair, and
And he's not being a douche. He's not saying you're ugly. Just like you kind of all look the same. You all copy paste off each other. You all have long straight hair. You all have the same makeup. You all have the same vibe. You probably all read the same things and watch the same things and wear the same things. So it is what it is.
But then if you are too original, you also get a lot of heat from people because now suddenly, what do you think you're special?
Don't make yourself better.
Exactly. And we must pull people down. So all I wanted to sketch here was the fact that there is a lot of stupid shit out there. There are a lot of people doing stupid shit to try and make other people think about them. And, again, probably, and I hate to break this to some of the people, it'll be a tiny minority of our audience because, of course, they're very smart. But people aren't thinking about you. Nobody's actually thinking about you.
There's the dinner from last night. There it is.
The
Yeah,
ancestors.
there we go. There we go.
I'm at Loz.
It's my cozy, Gareth.
You know what it is? I need to go and commune with my ancestors and get rid of this shit. I'm so sick of waking up in winter and having this sinusy thing.
It's because we get up at ungodly hours.
It is, but it's also like just winter. And try as I thought I was going to escape all the winter bugs because I got it early. I was like beginning of May. I was like, okay, I nailed this thing. I was man down for like a day or two.
I remember that actually.
Yeah, and then I came back and I was like, okay, done.
Yeah.
And it's not a big deal. I've just got a cold, but I've got this sinus thing, which is I don't know how to deal with this. People are always telling me what medicine you must take, all the rest of it, but it just seems to be like something I'm just gonna have to live with. So,
and also because your voice is so recognizable. People can tell when you're sick straight away because people hear your voice every day.
But multiple people are getting sick over and over and over. It's that kind of winter where it's like you don't just get sick once and then boom, I'm out. You get sick again and again and again if you're not careful.
And it was last week was the coldest week of the year, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so let's just be grateful we're not there again because this time last week we were really shivering in our pads.
Yeah, we're talking to Simon Gear.
Yes, that's
we're in the
right.
snow.
That's right.
I was actually very cold in the tuk-tuk this morning. My gosh, it was freezing.
We have to talk about
I'm
this.
so glad you brought this up. So I walk in. Look at you. So Lebang says to me, "Hi." Ryan, meanwhile, has told me that she's been dropped off in a tuk-tuk. And I saw this stupid-looking thing. Because, you know, they are stupid-looking. I'm sorry. I'm like, what is that? I go, Ryan, there's one of these little tuk-tuks. In fact, I saw it on the road on the way here.
It was probably my one.
It was probably your one. I was like, who would be in that? Were they delivering Uber Eats at this time in the morning? What's going on here? And Ryan's like, yeah, no, I'm just going to go and open the gate for Lebang quickly. And he walks out with the remote. And then you both walk in and you're like, hi. What? How do you get a tuk-tuk?
Yeah, no, but
did you ask for it specially or is that what just arrived?
This is what I wanted to know, right? Because the thing is, I don't know if there's a tuk-tuk app. And I'm like, Lebang, you realize there's Uber, right?
Yeah.
I
Or what's, I don't know
do.
what's the other one.
Bolt. So no, it's very simple. Remember, I think it was about a month ago. I took the tuk-tuk for the first time. I recorded the whole thing and I put up on my Instagram saying I'll probably never do it again because it was just like such a complex thing. So I kept the guy's number, right? Just to have it in case of emergency.
You've got a guy.
I've got a guy, right? So I
you called this guy at 5 a.m.
I didn't call him. I dropped him a WhatsApp and I was like, hey, bro, wondering if you're around. Like a ride to work.
Is he a lot cheaper than
He's like 20, 30 rand cheaper, right?
But you're open.
No. You can zip it down. It's zipped down. It's nice and it's cozy in there. You know, you just zip down the plastic sides.
I have to give you full points for a sense of adventure.
No, for sure.
Also in Sanson. I mean, have you seen the traffic on these roads?
But that's exactly why you take a tuk-tuk. Dude, my whole life is in these four walls. My house is right here. My work is here. My kids' school is just over that bridge. Everything I do, especially between Monday and Friday, is here. So for me, it's like an economic thing.
Listen, these things are so popular in parts of Asia because they're small. They can fit between the cars. You can get where you're going quicker. They can get deliveries done faster. There's a reason they exist.
100%.
And they might look stupid, and they do. But man, they first of all, hugely fuel efficient.
Madly.
Second of all, they can get there quicker than anything else.
Yeah.
I think Lebang's actually hacked something here.
I'm
she
onto
really
something, guys. In the year 2030, when you guys are all taking tuk-tuks, thank me. We'll look back on this very episode.
Take a tuk-tuk.
Take it and then give feedback.
No. So I used to take. So when I studied in at the academy in sound engineering there in Auckland Park, we used to take the tuk-tuks from Melville from like 7th Street back up to the SABC because that's where my college was. Yeah, and so that's the only reason I did it, was because it was close and we had the time. But to a motorist, now when I see them on the road, they're the most frustrating vehicles.
More than a taxi?
Oh, yes, because taxis at least drive fast.
So why doesn't Uber give you the option of choosing a tuk-tuk? I mean, if you've got a short distance to go, because you wouldn't use this if you're going to be on the highway for like 30 minutes.
Of course not.
But then what's
great for short distance?
But then what's Uber Go? Because Uber Go's like the lowest
it's
tier.
Like, that's
it's
the
like
one.
a hatchback.
That's the one where the guy sleeps in his car.
And it smells a bit
Guys,
crappy.
There's like lightly shat seats.
I actually just want to talk about this because you know how many times I've like driven past Ubers that are like chilling in parking lots, and they have their feet out the window.
Of course.
It is the most. I don't know. I don't know how anyone can put their feet out of their window.
They have to cool down those stink feet.
Gareth,
They have to get rid of the sweat, stink feet.
are you telling me if
smell.
you're gonna have a nap, you're gonna crack that window open?
Would you
and put your
prefer
feet
them
out?
to take their shoes off and let their feet aerate in the car that
Inside
you're
the
about
car
to?
that you're about to hop into.
Yeah. What would you prefer? Be honest, Ryan, because you only have those choices. You have the choice.
Well, I suppose.
What's wrong with some feet getting fresh air?
Yeah.
The problem is that you can see it.
Well, yes.
The problem is that you can see it.
You see, I'm one of those people that only wear closed-toed shoes out wherever I go. I'll only wear open-toed shoes, but even then,
You have
like at home.
Is it because you have very ugly feet?
I don't.
Be
think
honest.
So.
Be
Do
honest.
you want to show us?
To be honest, I
No,
don't.
we
I don't
don't.
know. I don't know what. I don't know what the basis is.
Hell no.
How does one know if you have ugly feet? Like
Speak. You know if you've got ugly feet. Come on.
Okay.
Some people are foot models.
Mm.
Like they literally are the whole job. I mean, some girls are making all their money on
Sure.
OnlyFans just showing their feet.
Some girls in America right now, as we speak, there's this new trend in the States where you kind of upload a picture of your feet onto a site, and then a guy contacts you and said, cool, he says, this is the location, come through, I'll pay $150. Literally, the entry level amount is $150. You come to this location, he's in a black van that's got curtains, he's got a mask on where it's just open here. I'm not making this up. I saw it yesterday. And then he'll tell you, don't wash your feet, don't do anything, just come,
Oh
just
my
arrive.
God.
This girl has a video of this guy eating the shit out of her feet, just like
no, dude.
all of 5 minutes. She got $150 and Bob was her uncle. I kid you not. Your feet could be popping, Ryan. If
No.
you get serious about multiple
No.
streams of income, this could be you. This could be you, but you're
How
playing.
much? $150.
$150 just to like
That's 3,000 rand
$3
for
grand.
a couple of minutes of some
Just-
stranger sucking your feet. It's pretty disgusting. Though.
It's
I
a
mean,
big business.
I think I would throw up if someone even did that to my feet, let alone if I had to do that to someone else's feet.
Yeah, no, it's a real thing. People
mean,
have fetishes out there. We need to allow people to express themselves.
Let me tell you, I feel sorry for those women in the salons who have to do the pedicures.
Oh yeah, yo, some people
Right.
are nasty.
Because some people's feet are just
Oof.
disgustingly bad.
They don't
But-
even try.
But if you've got a fetish for that stuff, I also feel sorry for you because you can't help if you've got a fetish for something.
Exactly.
It's like something that happened to you when you were a child, or like some. No, it is. It's something like that, right? I don't know
Yeah.
how to explain this. I'm not a sexologist, but we've had them on the show, and I remember someone could have been Dr. Elna McIntosh saying, when people develop some sort of fixation around feet or body hair or like ears or whatever it might be that they're
Yeah.
thinking, it's because at some point in their sexual growing up, their adolescence, their pubescence, all of this stuff, they develop some sort of attachment to a single experience.
Yeah.
Like it could be, you know, like this really beautiful girl at school, and you see her taking her shoes off or something, and then that gives
Yeah.
you this foot fetish for the rest of your life or
It's
whatever.
actually quite sad.
It's very sad. So I mean, like, I don't think anybody is totally vanilla in this world, but there are some terrible, terrible fetishes to have. And I don't think feet is a good one. I really don't. I think it must be quite sad for people.
But
Anyway,
it's definitely worse than feet. Let's be real. Feet
But-
is kind of like.
but imagine
it's
your
common.
job is sorting out other people's ugly ass toes and like filing down the back of their heel, which is all cracked.
Especially people that just don't wear shoes.
Ladies
and there
and
are
gentlemen.
many.
Ladies and
That
gentlemen,
just
let
go
us
to the malls.
let us just say a little prayer for those those women who work in the salons
And the men.
and the men. Are there men who work in the salons?
They definitely are. They definitely are. The guy that does my nails is a guy.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Sobe, man.
There we go.
Sobe, man. Like it's a real
Yeah.
thing.
Well, there we are. We've
We-
come full circle.
We have. Look, we've given you a way to earn extra cash.
From $7 million at Gucci to scrubbing the back of someone's foot,
Yeah, look at us.
the underside of someone's gross foot. Oh my God.
Yuck.
Oh, my girlfriend says Ndogozo has the most amazing feet ever. You see, he's
You
got
would
a,
say
got a
that.
foot thing.
You would say
It's
that
okay.
though. That's good. That's nice.
See, I encourage people to wear sneakers as often as possible.
So listen, you know what I did on, was it Saturday? Yeah, Saturday. I took one of my nephews shopping with me because he was at my folks, and I said, "Oh, why don't you come with me?" He's 6, 7 years old.
Cute.
And I said to him, come with me, because I knew he wanted to go to the sweet shop, right? There's a sweet shop. And I'm like, I'm not going to spoil you, because
But-
otherwise
but-
you end up with like rotten teeth and
Sure.
have a bad diet for the rest of your life. But come, I'll get you some sweets.
Is it one of those import sweet shops?
Yeah. It's all the good shit.
Okay.
Right? And he knows that. So clever. So I said to him, okay, but first we've got to go and buy some booze. He's like, what's booze? So I take him with me to the liquor store, which I think every kid has to see. And he's like, that looks terrible. He picks up this little thing at the counter, which is like one of those.
Like a nip.
No, it's like what is it? What is a nip?
Is it those bug shots?
Like a little
Yeah,
tiny.
like a bug shot.
Like a bug shot.
Yeah. And he's like, what is this? So I asked him, that is horrible. He goes, yeah, I've seen people drink it. It looks horrible. So I'm like, have you ever tried it? He's like, no. So I said, good. It's horrible. It's very bad. It tastes like, I said to him, it tastes like petrol. So he goes, ugh. So anyway, we pay for our stuff there. Then I go and do the grocery shopping that I needed to do. And he's so good. He doesn't ask for anything in the shop. I try to tempt him. I'm like, how about these? He goes, no, I'm waiting for the sweet shop.
Oh.
I'm like, how about these? He
He's
goes,
clever.
no, I'm waiting for the
He's
sweet
very
shop.
clever.
Delayed gratification.
Yes.
Sure.
He's learned some skills.
He's waiting
Sure.
to cash in.
Right. And then we go to the sweet shop. And to my utter amazement, the little guy only asks for one thing. It's one of those boxes of like flavored jelly bean things with
Yeah.
a
Jelly bellies.
like 30 different flavors
It's
or
jelly
whatever.
bellies.
And he gets one for his brother too, which I
Oh.
thought
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
I was so impressed with this because they're little indicators there that this is a good human, right?
Yeah. No, he's being raised right.
Right.
That's
I
what
mean,
that
like,
means.
Thought about his brother. He
Mm.
wasn't greedy for all the other stuff. He could
Mm.
delay gratification, knew what
Let
he
you
wanted.
finish. Yeah.
Didn't at the sweet shop ask for 3 things. He just got the one. I was impressed with
That is very impressive because
Yeah.
it's rare for a child to be able to, number one, not just get into the store and grab everything that they want and
Absolutely.
beg you for
Yeah.
it. For him to be able to just sit back and say,
Right.
"Do your thing, Uncle G. I know your siblings are doing the right thing."
I
there."
think that's all right. Hey?
If you
Quite
went
impressed.
if you went for a bottle of Prime or like those Prime energy cans
Now,
or whatever.
the reason I bring this up is because he did ask about Prime.
Ah,
He did ask
there it
about
is.
Prime.
Okay.
Look who's
okay.
there. There's Darrel Bristow-Bovey.
Oh.
Because Ryan's on the show this morning. There was no welcoming
Yeah,
party for
I'm
you.
sorry about that.
Ryan, go and help him
All
to
right,
some coffee
I'll
or
do that.
something. Let's make sure our guests feel welcome. See, Labang, we have an open door policy here.
Yeah, we do. Like people just like walk in and do whatever they want. There was that one time where I kind of got scared, but we don't need to talk about that. I'm very impressed with your nephews.
I'm impressed with the fact that as soon as something went crash and boom in your office just now, you blamed the ghost.
But I told you about this ghost like 2 weeks ago. None of you believe me, and it is a real thing. And it's always when I'm in the bathroom.
All right, everybody. Labang thinks there's a ghost in the building.
I don't think there's a ghost in the building. I am quite sure that there is a ghost in the building because these days I've been the last person to leave the office. Like I leave at 6, 7. And like just before I leave, I go to the bathroom, just, do my thing. And I always hear something. The one day I heard, boom. And I'm like, okay. When I get out the door, literally half the kitchen is on the floor. And none of you believe me. I was like, okay, cool, it's fine.
Well,
There's
what
a
happened?
ghost up in here.
Yeah, sure. What happened this morning? She
This-
goes, "Oh no, false alarm! It's not the ghost."
Yes, because my water bottle fell. However, the previous time,
Yeah.
look, I'll keep checking it out. I'll test out the energies here. I'll bring someone to come do like some Zenish chakra-ish stuff so we can see what the energy levels are like. But
And a sangoma to come and put some muti in the right places.
perhaps maybe just someone to come and pray for the office. Why do you think when we start the show these things happen, Gareth? You must always see the signs. We plug all the things in, but the audio's off. Why do you think that is?
No.
It's the ghost of Cliff
You're
Central.
getting carried away.
It followed us from Rivonia.
No. Don't be silly. All right, so we got a couple of things that we wanted to look at in the news this morning. Let's take a quick look. So KFC customers can claim back their R2 for hope donations from SARS.
Oh,
Did you know this?
I had no cooking clue. I don't even donate anymore.
So a KFC customer ignited a humorous but valid debate on Twitter by asking the fast food chain how she can prove her R2 to add hope donations in order to get a tax refund from SARS. And the response was simple. Email your receipt and ask for a Section 18A certificate.
Wow. That's it.
For R2,
But how many 2 rands?
I mean, unless you're buying KFC every week,
Like Ryan?
more than once a week,
Yes.
this is a big, huge heap of paperwork to get very little back. But I do like the idea of making SARS work for, every cent.
Yeah, definitely. But there's people that, Gareth, if you put it this way, breakfast, lunch, supper, let's say it's KFC, that's 2 4 6. That's 6 rand a day, 6 times 7, 7 times 4, in a year.
It builds up.
It does add up. And it really, like, where the thing is, it's in the little amounts.
But
It's
let's
in the
be
little
honest.
amounts.
Do you really add hope?
do you really add the R2? Let's start there. I don't. I stopped because I'm like, where's this money going? How do I know that it's going to feed a child out there?
Well, I don't think I don't think like KFC use it to buy that oil that they fry everything in.
Well, I fucking hope not.
But I will say that I don't care about that. I'm there to, if I do go to KFC, which is a very rare thing for me, if I do go, it's to get KFC. I'm not there to save the world. Do you understand?
Yeah,
like
100%.
I don't feel bad at all.
100%.
I just say to the woman, because they try to guilt you into it.
Of course.
Hi, sir, would you like to add R2 to help a starving child? And I'm like, no. And then there's this silence because they judge you. They go,
are you sure?
Oh, you're that kind of person, are you?
Nah, it'd be like
So
that.
you don't want to save. You don't want to help a starving child.
No, I'll help a starving child in my own time, at my own account, when I choose to do it.
And I might even want to choose which starving child. How about that? I don't want you to choose and take the credit. How about that, KFC? Because you know what they do, right? They go, even if, let's say that they're totally above board, I have no reason to believe that they would not do what they say about it.
Sure.
So let's say they take all these R2 for hope that they gather from people, gullible people, and they go off and they start a massive kitchen and they help people to feed like some starving community or whatever.
And they probably do, Shem.
But then they look good, not the people who paid the R2 for hope. And at KFC go, look at how good we are.
But this is that same thing as if somebody does something good for someone, you shouldn't stop to record it and then post it and say, oh, I did such a good thing today.
But,
just get on with it, do your good thing and call it a day.
There's no such thing as altruism. And if they're going to take the credit for other people's money.
Not my R2.
I'm like, no, I'm not giving you my R2. You can go feed your own starving children. I'll find some other
I'll find my own. I've
Yeah.
got some in my family, bro. Look, Section 18A certificate, not going to happen. I don't think any South African has time to literally email and get a response back and download. It's not going to happen.
There we go.
Yeah, no.
Wasn't there a scandal that the R2 went to a party with strippers and streetwise 3 for a bunch of prisoners? I don't know if that's true, but that sounds hilarious.
That sounds sus.
My son goes to what they call Boys and Girls Club, sponsored by KFC every weekday after school.
That's a lot of
What's
R2.
that, Lucky? What's that, Lucky, that we're paying for? Not Lebang and I, but the rest of you. All these paranormal investigators will always find something. How else do they get repeat business? It's in their interest to keep an entity. Absolute claptrap. So that's about the ghost.
Okay, we'll see.
They don't say, would you like to? They say, how much are you donating to? Blah, blah, blah. That's even more.
And they mumble it very quickly. So you order, I'll have a double blah, blah, blah chicken and a one hour streetwide too. And then they go, hope. And you go, what? Hope. That time they really just added it. And you're just like, can I get out of here? That's how they trap you. They don't even tell you exactly what you're doing. They just swindle you in it. You know what? It's a scam.
Scam, says Lebang.
Again.
We're going to get sued over this, but okay.
Yeah, maybe that's
Scam.
not.
I didn't say it was a scam. Let's be clear about this.
All I said is they say it very fast. The script is quick.
No, that it is.
Yeah.
All right. So in other news, we've got Cape Town's the greatest city on earth, a new survey. Oh, yeah, sure. These come out all the time. And I think there's an office somewhere in Cape Town where someone just drums up graphics and makes up some new award that Cape Town has won. It's some middle-aged, unemployed person who's just in love with the idea of being in Cape Town. And there are lots of those people, right? In the latest Telegraph Travel Awards. Oh, wait.
Telegraph Travel?
Let me just look around and see where the Telegraph Travel Awards are. I forgot to check them this year. Oh, hang on, Lebang. I must just quickly
Stop
Google.
the clocks, please.
Everybody, stop whatever you're doing. I'm just
this
check
is so important.
The Telegraph Travel Awards, well, that changes everything. So apparently they say that South Africa dethroned the decade-long favorite New Zealand thanks to its scenery and attractions. And particularly Cape Town got all the kudos here.
I was actually there last week. There are so many beautiful things about Cape Town, but there's also just so many meh things about Cape Town. Many, many meh. More meh than beautiful, but they'll never tell you the meh.
You were just there the other day, right?
Is the thing. So
I always make a point of upsetting some Cape Townian by saying something negative about Cape Town, just to test, because they take it very personally. Cape Town to them is part of their identity.
And they'll be in the comments on some, how could you?
Yeah.
I actually linked up with God.
I saw you two had a little party.
We did do a little bit of a thing. We went out and we, took a walk and saw the sunsets, and he did a lot of talking and I did a lot of learning, and it was very, very cool. It was lovely. And we did karaoke.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, we did.
What did you sing?
I did Nickelback's "It's Not Like You." It was amazing. And the second song I did was "Cause I Love You." Who's the artist again? Williams, that old that sad guy. That guy. So those are the songs that I did, and Gore did like a very, very cool rap. It was very fun. It was
He
nice,
can
but
rap,
everyone
eh?
was just like super, super lit and drunk. I lost my glasses.
Oh,
It got
Jesus.
a bit messy, but it was great.
Okay, so I mean, you own Cape Town for one night.
I did.
Very good.
One night only.
The women in Cape Town are much better looking than those in New Zealand. Let's be honest, says Carl. Yeah, but Carl, I mean, that's like comparing the, the animal enclosure to the house where the people live.
Yikes!
I mean, really, have you seen, especially the women on South Island in New Zealand? Oh my God!
How are they looking there? Is it not looking good?
Like they could inhabit the area under a bridge that Billy Goat's Gruff would walk over.
Oof. That's not good PR.
No,
That's not sounding good.
No.
But women in South Africa, generally some of the hottest, most beautiful,
Yes.
best
I
bodies.
will agree with you.
Just like overly popping. That's like what we really have going for us, for one thing.
All right. So here's something else that's quite interesting. And I bring this up because these people, I'm just so sick of these people, these climate activists, especially the group Just Stop Oil. In a bold and audacious act of protest, it's not that bold and audacious because they always do this in places where nothing happens to them. If you tried any of this shit in Russia or in China or in Brazil even, you'd be locked up and or executed.
Sure.
And we'd never hear from your sorry ass
They don't
again.
take that shit.
Right. They don't take that shit. I think even in places like the Congo, they'll cut your hands off. So it turns out that activists from the last generation, because they believe that the earth is going to end, they're basically like those people who used to come to your door and go, "Hi, sir, have you heard the good news about our Lord Jesus Christ? And the world is about to end. And if you don't talk to us right now, you're never going to have a chance of anything after that." Right. So this is basically what they are. They are apocalyptic nutcases who want to seem virtuous by telling you that the worst possible things are going to happen, that it's all your fault, and that you must repent. It's based on absolutely zero evidence, and it's complete nonsense. Anyway, they're in Hamburg in Germany. They took their demonstration to the runways of local airports, causing significant disruptions to flight operations. In an act of civil disobedience, members of the group accessed the airport runways and firmly attached their hands to the runway.
Whoa.
Stuck their hands down on the runway using a mixture of concrete and epoxy resin. This blend, commonly used for construction purposes, hardens over time and can result in the hands being permanently stuck unless amputation is pursued as a solution. This extreme method serves as a demonstration of their frustration with authorities' lack of action on climate change, symbolically sacrificing their own hands to showcase their resentment. Well, I say leave them there and drive right over them with your planes.
So I've booked a flight ticket. I just want to fly from Germany to the other side of Germany.
Right.
I'm minding my business. I've
Right.
just gotten a coffee from the air hostess.
Right.
And you prick have
Yes.
stuck your hands
Say it.
onto the, for what? What does that have to do with me? Can I just get to where I need to go? Can you go protest elsewhere? I'm just a little bit confused as to what this has to do with me.
So two other things that they did this last weekend, these same climate activists, they spray painted with paint a yacht. It's a huge big yacht that was parked in some fancy harbor somewhere that costs, I don't know, $300 million or something. And they decided to just pour paint all over it in an act of protest. And instead of shooting them dead, the people on the yacht spray them with water to get rid of them.
Just give them a bit of a splash.
Again, they need
Curious, like what
Sorry.
happened? What happened to their
I
hands?
don't know what happened there.
I need to know.
So they might have to have their hands amputated because now they've got all this shit stuck to their hands.
Whose idea was this?
It's great. I think, stupid is as stupid does.
Yeah.
They will pay the price
They
anyway.
will. You'll
Yeah.
literally get what's
You'll
coming
get
for
what you deserve
Yeah.
here. So I think this is great. But somebody said here, oh, yeah, of course it's Congo Chris. He said, these Just Stop Oil children need to have the back of their knees shambucked.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. no.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Try activism in Saudi Arabia, says Bakabantu. Get beheaded for your troubles. Yeah, of course, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Of course.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right. And if they die, who gets the blame? They do.
Why are they doing that? I'm so confused.
Okay, but then I heard the story this morning that really upset me. That apparently these guys, because these stop oil people, what they do is they just lie in the road, and then trucks have to stop, right? And this truck driver was so frustrated because he's got deadlines. He's being paid.
It's his job.
It's his job. He gets out of his truck and he drags these idiots. By the way, these are all privileged, wealthy kids. Of like usually university education. They're spoiled. These are not people who are impoverished or work in an industry that's trying to better the globe. They're doing nothing positive for climate change at all, except making a nuisance of themselves. Anyway, he hauls this kid off the road so he can drive his truck. Kid goes back. He hauls him off again. Other people join in and haul him off. I heard that this guy, the truck driver, got fired.
For trying to do his job.
For trying to do his job. So the company fired him because it's bad PR.
It's bad PR. Isn't there a video of this airport thing? I just want to see.
Here's a look at this stuff at the airport. This is just so upsetting. I mean, I can't.
3 people stormed Ibiza Airport, adhering to a private jet and splashing paint on it in protest against luxury emissions.
Screwed up this whole plane.
What?
It's not their jet. I don't know who. They don't know who it belongs to. They just see a jet. They go, "Oh, we need to." In Ibiza Airport, so it's obviously some rich person who's gone to a festival or something.
It's so clear to me that these kids who participate in these activist protest things of this nature actually have nothing going on in their actual lives.
No.
They don't have any ideas to start a business. They don't have a job. There's no 9 to 5. There's simply no purpose. And therefore, whatever a little group of people are doing that looks like it's cool and you're making a difference, they'll just kind of hop onto that to participate for the sake of participation. And it kind of bores me.
It's very irritating and boring. I couldn't agree more. All right. It's 7:00. When we come back, we will talk to the brilliant Darrel Bristow-Bovey about his book, which is all about the endurance. This is, of course, the Shackleton expedition. And it's got a personal angle to it, which I think you'll find fascinating. But it is a very, very cool book. And we'll talk to Darrel about that just now. He has plenty to tell us. And I haven't seen him in ages. Must be like 15 or more years.
Yikes.
So I'm looking forward to catching up with him. Stick around. We've got lots more to come. Don't go anywhere.
You might know Cliff Central as South Africa's podcasting pioneer. Well, of course, we did help kickstart the industry back in 2014, and we've been shaping the space ever since. But did you know that we also do a whole lot more? We have a dedicated and growing fan base that's ready to hear all about your business. We simply leverage the power of our brand and help you reach your ideal audience. And the best part of it all is that it's all white label. So whatever you create with us is yours to repurpose and do with it as you see.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
What cars has been able to do is they've changed how people interact with the world and each other and accessibility to things. We always talk about why the first car essentially gives people freedom. It offers you an opportunity to get a job wherever you want. It gives you an opportunity to change your lifestyle. And I think that's kind of the big difference that I have against, people who think, rockets are cool, planes are cool, but I think in terms of everything, cars have definitely made the biggest impact, including trucking and logistics.
Yeah, I mean, it's created freedom. It's created independence. It's created the ability to make the world smaller. You know, besides the internet that's made the world smaller now, because with the internet you need to be able to deliver stuff.
Yeah,
and cars are critical to that chain, to that value chain. So the internet is in the reality of the internet and click to buy or e-commerce is made possible because of vehicles.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
All right, cliffcentral.com on a Wednesday morning. And usually around this time, we have a guest. And I'm very, very pleased to see Darrel Bristow-Bovey again for the first time in ages. You say it's, 10 years since we last saw each other?
10 years, exactly. 10 years since I wrote my last book.
God, that's a long time.
It's the only reason I write books these days, so I can get to see you again, Gareth.
But dude, I have known you for a long time. I mean, it
Yeah.
must be close to 20 years that we've known
It
each
was
other.
20 years. I remember I was actually just driving over here, remembering the first time. Was it a boxing match in
oh my God, at Carnival City or something, wasn't
that's
it?
right. Yeah. Or maybe Caesar's Palace or
That
something.
was in the days where, like, people would go to events and there was a prestige and an excitement around these things. I mean, it was so stupid.
We put on our good T-shirts.
Oh yeah. We dressed up for things like that.
Yeah.
In fact, I can't remember who was actually in the match, but it was a major thing, and it was late at night or early in the morning or something
Late
like
at night,
that.
that's
Yeah,
right.
it was bizarre.
Yeah.
So let me just give a quick introduction so that everybody else knows, because I mean, the most amazing thing about you is that you do have a long and very, very cool history in writing, but you're a prize-winning author, you're a screenwriter, you're a travel writer, you're a newspaper and magazine columnist. A lot of that stuff sounds a little bit archaic because the media world has changed so much. But those things used to be, I mean, if you could call yourself just any one of those things I've just called you, you were like at the top of the food chain. And in some ways you still are, because it's a quality and ability, a talent that very few people have. You've written 5 books. They've been translated into 7 different languages, including Spanish, Estonian, and Portuguese. You're born in South Africa. You studied under, and this is amazing, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, J.M. Coetzee and Andre Pierre Brink. I mean, to learn from people like that who have become international juggernauts in their own space and time is quite something. But the most amazing thing about this is that you, and I picked this up from your new book, which is a real exploration of the Shackleton expedition. It's about it was the Endurance, which of course they found. They found the ship at the bottom of the Antarctic Ocean. And your father has an intimate connection to that. But one of the chapters you start off going, oh, well, I'm sitting in Greece. And I thought, what a life this guy has. So you spend a lot of your time in the Peloponnese. You got a house there or something?
I'm building a house there.
That's so cool.
How
did that happen in between? I mean, I should have stayed in contact with you. I might have got an invite to your house in the Peloponnese.
Listen, it's not.
How often are you there?
It's not too late for that. So I'm building the house, right?
Right.
So the great thing about building a house in Greece is that you get to work with the most optimistic people on earth. A Greek builder is always going to be finished next month. so that's been a couple of years now. We have walls, we have floors, we have some ceilings. So I reckon in another year, there's a guest wing that'll be just perfect for your studio away from home. No, we bought that in over the internet during lockdown. So for about 6 years, I haven't had a home. I've been sort of roaming the world, and each month I stay in a different city or a different country.
Yeah,
and then which is great, right?
Yeah, of course.
Until suddenly it's lockdown and you don't have anywhere to go. So we came back from Los Angeles and we're in a borrowed flat. And thought, this is no good. A man needs room to roam. Yeah, I need to be able to walk out of my house and have nobody tell me, go back inside. And have people in Cape Town shout at me out of the windows because they don't believe that I'm walking a dog, which I wasn't because I don't have a dog. And so we bought the land off the internet. There's nothing. There's no electricity. There's no.
It was very expensive.
No, it's very cheap.
Really?
Yeah, I'm attracted. You don't know this.
And
about
do
me,
they-
Gareth. I'm attracted to cheap things.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being attracted to cheap things as long as you yourself aren't cheap.
Correct.
What made you think of Greece? And are they very friendly and welcoming to, I mean, do you, for example, have to apply for a visa every time you go back to your house?
No, I don't, because after a certain point of spending money, they give you a residency.
Oh, that's handy.
That's
very handy.
But Greece, because they are so lovely. I'd spent like in the previous years before. I spent a month on different islands and Athens.
What a place!
And they're the nicest people, you know. And you never really know if they're really angry or if they're being very welcoming, because there's just a lot of shouting and hand waving, and banging on the table. But it turns out they're always friendly.
All right, so let's get straight into this book, because I really loved it. I sometimes read the entire book when I've got someone who comes in for an interview, and sometimes you just don't have time. You've got maybe 3 or 4 books to get through in a week, and I'm interviewing people at various times a day, and I don't get through the whole thing. And I did with you, and partly that's because, I mean, I've read some of your previous books, and I love the way you write. I'm just going to go to this to give people an illustration of what I mean, right? So here you are, just casually penning this little chapter. You go, life is expansion and multiplication, a dazzling scattering of light, an infinity of brightness and surprise. And although much is lost along the way, not merely does more abide, more is added, delight is added, insight and wisdom are added, beauty and bravery are added. I suppose what I'm trying to say, and sometimes struggle in my day-to-day life to remember, is that the world is a trembling threshold of possibility, of conjunctions and contradictions, of opposite things that can be true at the same time. We're doomed and we're not. We can go home and we can't. The past is over and the past is still changing. Lost things are lost and lost things come back. I mean, that's good shit.
I wish you'd read my audiobook, man. That was perfect.
It's good to read stuff that, you know, I said to you just before we started the interview, lots of people can tell a story, but they tell it kind of badly. It takes a real wordsmith to be able to tell a story beautifully. So obviously we must start with the fact that you knew, and you must have known as a child, that your father, who at that stage was living in Durban.
Yep.
And I mean, you're very fair about him. He clearly was a tremendously talented, adventurous man of courage, bravery, fortitude, and all that stuff. But you also paint this picture of this guy who's kind of, you know, he's got this legacy he never really grabbed hold of.
Yeah.
But you must have known as a kid that your dad was on this incredible expedition.
Well, that was one of the things that entwines Shackleton and my father in my head is this very question of what is success, right? You know, what is a successful life? So, Shackleton, who was this polar explorer, but who never actually achieved anything. He never made it to the South Pole.
Yeah.
He never managed to walk across the continents. He came back from his expedition as a failure. And my father felt much the same way. He was, like you say, a man of talent, I think, and of ambition and of dreams and of skills. We grew up in the Depression. He never finished school. He left school at the age of 12. And I think he felt like a failure. And in some ways, he presented as a failure to me. And when he was young, I used to lie in bed with him, and he used to, at night after he'd had his first stroke, and he would tell me stories of his life. Right? And so for me as a kid, your father tells you stories. He's the hero. He's the central thing in your life, and his stories created this sort of mythical figure. And of course, he was a great storyteller. He was a fantastic storyteller, and like all good storytellers, not all of his stories, I think, were true. And so one of the things he told me was that he had been with Shackleton on the Endurance when they sailed in 1914 down to go and cross the Antarctic, and he'd got stuck in the ice, and he'd come back from the ice, and now he'd settled down in Durban. And even as I grew older, and I sort of put the dates together, and realized, he would have been 5 at that time. I still couldn't quite believe that he hadn't been on the ship, because he knew all of these details. He knew personal details about Shackleton that he couldn't have known, and that have only subsequently come out in learned biographies that were written after he died. So one of my journeys in this book was to figure out how he could possibly have known any of that if he wasn't, in fact, on the ship. And I worked through many theories. So he might have been a stowaway, the cabin boy, Shanghaied.
Right.
But I come up with a solution that I think sort of.
But there's a part of you that kind of wants to believe your dad is part of something like this.
Yes.
And then there's a part of you that is extremely skeptical of this, just because you're a realistic sort of human being.
Right.
And I think we all come to a point where we realize that our fathers are not superhuman.
Yeah.
And I think it's difficult for any, especially young man, but young girls as well, to realize like your dad can't save you from everything. They're not good at everything. They don't know all the answers.
That's part of the journey, right? Of household, you know that it can't be true. He's just another person like me. But there's a part of you that yearns for that, and yearns for that moment of childhood, right? That where you're whole, and part of feeling whole is feeling like there was a superhuman figure who could look after you and make everything all right.
And then, that we also have to see that the end of the age of adventurers was more than a century ago. Yeah. I mean, all the places, with the possible exception of the moon in the 60s, all the other places have been explored.
Yeah.
We had to go into space because there was no ocean deep enough anymore. There's no forest that was left untrod by the explorers of the European world.
Yeah.
There was no far-flung continent. And even Antarctica and the Arctic, which is just ice, had been conquered. There were people like Amundsen. There were people who'd traversed these incredible wastelands of just cold and misery and frostbite and shit to come back with the accolade. And Shackleton was not given any accolades because he didn't make it, and he lost the ship too.
Yeah, and also he did it during the First World War.
There were lots of distractions.
Yeah, they were away in the ice, and so when he came back after this incredible, it's one of the great stories of adventure and survival of all time. And when he comes back, people go, "But why? You should have been fighting and dying in the fields of France." And it's one of the first examples, I think, of people telling other people who are doing wonderful things, I think, extraordinary human things. No, that's not what you should be focused on. They're more important social issues that you should.
Well, it's like those people who tell rich people they shouldn't be helping this charity; they should be helping that one, as if it was their money.
Yeah, or you shouldn't be allowed to go down in a submersible.
That was a big thing.
Yeah,
those 5 people who went down to see the
right?
Titanic. Oh, how dare they spend their own money going down there and putting their life at risk to just do something that the rest of us can't afford?
Yeah,
how rude.
Yeah,
shouldn't you rather be spending that on starving people or whatever?
Yeah.
So when you wrote this, I mean, there must have been, because you've done a huge amount of research too. You tell us about where all the various people who were on the expedition ended up.
Yeah.
What they ended up doing. And there are some South African links there too. But kind of when did the whole story start to make sense for you? And when did you separate fact from fiction in terms of what you'd been told, what you believed, and what you discovered? Because that's an exploration of its own.
That is. And, I've been obsessed with the Shackleton story ever.
But there's a name for you guys who are obsessed with it.
Shackleheads.
Shackleheads, that's right.
It's a name that's caught on quite a lot. I invented it.
It works.
In my pitch for the book. And so I keep running into people and I saying, I too am a Shacklehead. Oh, you indeed. I want that to be an entry in the Oxford Dictionary under my name one day. Last year when they found the Endurance, and it's at the bottom of the Weddell Sea, and it's in the clearest seawater on Earth, and because there's no oxygen down there and there's no bacteria that eats the wood, it's pristine and perfect. And one of the sailors, Shackleton's right-hand man, a guy called Frank Wild, all through his journals, sort of complains about having to leave his good boots behind. Oh. And you can see them on the deck of the boat, and leather stitching is still there. And when I saw that, there was this moment of joy, and it was in the newspapers and the websites of the world, where people were suddenly, sharing these beautiful photographs and saying, "Look at this incredible thing." And there was that moment where I just suddenly thought, wow, that's one of the few news stories I've seen recently where there's nothing, no one's angry about anything. You know, no one's blaming anybody for doing anything. They've just found this thing that's come back like a gift from the world, the lost, a place of lost things, and something's been found. And so that's what kind of started this journey to sort of go back through time and to look into the future and to sift through all of the evidence.
All right, so I mean, people have to read the book, so we're not going to give away everything, but there's quite a lot of interesting historical anecdotes. And I mean, in one chapter you talk about the infinite game.
Yeah.
You talk about the difference, and you mentioned success when we started talking here. And people have different attitudes and different ideas of what success is. You know, is success winning and being the first to the pole?
Right.
Is success making tons of money? Is success finding the perfect partner? Is success having wonderful children who grow up to be useful and prosperous and productive adults?
Mm-hmm.
What is success? And, you know, is Shackleton to be regarded as a failure? And how many of us, by the same standard, would fall short?
Yeah. Well, you know, by the measurements of a finite game, Shackleton was a failure, and so was Scott, his great rival in the Antarctic exploration. Scott was on a race to be the first to the South Pole. He gets beaten there by Amundsen. He arrives at the South Pole and sees the Norwegian flag is flying, and he feels like a failure, and he feels so depressed and so saddened by this that he kind of loses heart and degenerates as a leader coming back across the ice, and all of his party die and freeze to death in a tent. And contrasted to that is Shackleton, and I've come to think, you know, my father and people like that, whose idea of success is to play a different kind of game from this finite game of winning and losing.
Okay.
And the distinction between finite and infinite games comes from a philosopher called James Cart, who thought of the infinite game as being a game that we play in order to keep on playing, right? And that seems as good a definition of life as I can think of.
A game that you keep on playing.
You play it in order to keep playing.
Right.
You know, the moment a finite game, when somebody wins, the game ends. Right.
Right.
A game that you keep on playing is a game that never ends, that includes other people, that goes on until you die. And that's what Shackleton was playing. So he tries to go off to the Antarctic. The ship gets frozen into the sea. He needs to get to the Antarctic because he's borrowed all this money that he can only pay back by getting there and completing his expedition. But he doesn't get distressed and depressed. They get frozen into the ice. They have to spend this long polar winter. These men who don't know each other.
Which, by the way,
weirdly
even on its own, forget about whether you make it to the South Pole or not.
Yeah.
Most of us would not survive anything approximating that.
No, and a previous expedition didn't. Everyone went mad. Of course. And Shackleton takes these men who are as remote as any human being has been in the world at that time, and will be again, as you say, until people go to the moon.
Right.
And in some ways, they're more remote, right? Because they don't have radios.
I mean, there wasn't this base in Antarctica that there is now.
No.
You know, at the South Pole, there's this building that there are people in pretty much all year round.
Yes.
And even though there are only a few ships that go there, you can get there if you want to, and you don't have to be some sort of survival expert or some kind of person who can eat from tins and heat water miraculously and survive without your fingers falling off. We can all do a trip to the Antarctic now. We just take it for granted that it's there and that it's mostly uninteresting, which is also not true.
These guys just don't. No one knows where they are. You know, no one's going to know that they're even missing for another year, and no one has ever been to this particular place that they were before and since, until the ship found them.
Wow.
And so, from the middle of the frozen sea, he just switches his goal, and his next goal is to bring all of his men back alive, and it feels like, which he spoiler alert, he does, and it feels like a kind of a metaphor for what a successful life is. A successful life is somebody is living it in such a way that you aren't so fixed on this one achievement that everything else falls aside by the wayside.
You take other people with you.
Yeah, you
Which
take other
again,
people with you.
And a lot of
and
this
you make
sounds
it
like
bigger.
a sort of claptrap you hear from motivational speakers,
Yeah.
but it seems
Except this is a man on the ice with other men with actual lives in his hands.
Yeah,
It's,
this is not hot air.
It's not some dude in a boardroom telling you to smile and be positive.
All right. Well, I'm glad we both have a detestation for those sort of people. All right. But let's talk about this guy, Oliver Goldsmith, for a second, because I love his system. And there are lots of people who are sitting with debt in South Africa right now.
Yes.
So included in that chapter, you go into a brief description of what he used to do. Is he in any way an ancestor of the Goldsmiths of
money fame?
Of money fame now? Because he may well be also Anglo-Irish.
It may well be. Yeah.
Annabelle's Club. I interviewed Ben Goldsmith the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, who's written a book about losing his daughter during COVID, which was, the most devastating thing. It was a farm accident.
Oh, wow.
And his brother's an MP. In fact, his brother's now a Lord and the Minister for the Environment in the UK.
That's right.
His sister Jemima married Imran Khan. The mother is Annabelle, famously the club Annabelle's. But these are a very well-to-do family. I think he might be an ancestor of this.
I suspect so.
I'm guessing so. But anyway, what did he do?
He had a fantastic system.
I mean, apart from writing "She Stoops to Conquer," not a small
wrote a lot
work.
Wrote a lot of. He was an interesting guy. He was always so depressed about not having any money that his friends once sort of whipped together to buy him a ticket to America. To go try his luck there, and he took the money and spent it all night drinking, and tried to sneak on board the ship as a stowaway. But he had a system where whenever he had another debt come in, another bill to be paid, he'd put it all into a hat, and when he had a little windfall, he would dip his hand into the hat, choose a bill at random, and pay that off, and keep on paying that off until the windfall had run out. And when certain debtors would come to him and say, you haven't paid for your hats or your pork pies or whatever it was they ate in England in those days, he would explain the system. He'd say, it's a matter of chance. You have to take your chances along with everybody else. And sir, if you don't like it, you are out of the hat.
And so that was it. That was how he solved all his money problems.
It's an ongoing system.
Did they accept his explanation?
Well, they had to, because otherwise they weren't in the running when the next windfall came.
I'm going to think that's a good way to deal with our banks in South Africa and mortgages and things. We should say to them, you know what? It wasn't your turn in the hat. I'm sorry.
It wasn't your
turn.
turn.
This much.
We're all ruled by chance and circumstance.
There we go. All right, so let's just talk about the Antarctic, because it's got this sort of romantic and at the same time terrifying reputation. What can you tell people who've never been there, people who don't know anything about it? It's a forbidding place, obviously. Yeah. Most people, when they picture it in their heads, including me, you just picture these white sort of snow and ice covered ranges and flats and just wind blowing. Absolutely chilling, nasty things that want to destroy you with cold, freeze you to death. Is there anything at all redeeming about that landscape?
Look, the polar plateau, which is where the North Pole is the least attractive part of it, and it's the final stretch as you get to the South Pole, and it's the highest land on Earth and windiest and snowiest. But most
highest land on Earth.
Yeah.
Really?
Antarctica is the highest continent on Earth, the driest and the coldest. It's the biggest desert.
So when people talk about Everest being the highest peak,
that's the highest peak. Yeah,
but
in terms of average height.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm learning new things already. So already 3 records in a place that we've barely begun to explore.
Yeah.
Okay,
but most of it isn't the polar plateau. Most of Antarctica is incredibly beautiful lands that surround this continent. And in summer and in spring, it's a place of wonderland when the light is up. Because
this is Aurora Australis, Australensis, or what is it?
Yeah, the Aurora Australis, of course,
there we are.
Lovely as well.
Southern.
But just when the sunlight is up, because the sun is at a different angle there than it is in the rest of the world, right? It comes obliquely, so it's constantly coming through ice, bouncing off the snow, and it creates
diffraction.
Refraction and reflection as well, and it creates incredible rainbow effects and deep deep colors of blue and orange and yellow and pink that you don't expect. You expect to see it all white, and it's very seldom white in the spring and in the summer on the ice fields. It feels like being in a gigantic crystalline mushroom trip.
Jeez. Mm-hmm. All right. So why would anyone with their head screwed on right at the time that Scott, that Shackleton, that Amundsen decided to go down there, why would they do that? Was there a tremendous amount of prestige attached to the explorer label, and particularly the explorer who discovers X, Y, and Z? And does that come from the conquistadors or from Diaz or from, all these great Drake, all these people who traversed the world before, discovering places?
Weirdly enough, we think about that now, but actually they spent a lot of time trying to persuade society that there was a lot of glory attached, because they're trying to get funded. They were all incredibly poor. But actually, they encountered as much criticism and resentment and skepticism as we probably would now. People would say, "Well, what are you doing down there?" And they'd make up lies. That Shackleton was perpetually trying to tell people that no, they found some coal down there, and they think there might be diamonds, there might be gold, and they'd get people to invest in these expeditions. And there was honestly not a great deal of prestige to be had, especially after Amundsen was the first to the South Pole.
Right.
And after that, it's like, well, we didn't do that.
Everything else will be second best.
It's all
finite.
It's all been
stuff.
done.
Right.
Exactly. And so these guys keep going, and you don't really know why, except for the fact that Shackleton always said he felt more alive down there. And that he, when on land and when in society and when moving through normal life, felt that he didn't belong there. And there's some people who are just called to do odd, senseless and extraordinary things. And I think that's part of what the beauty of being of humanity is, right? Is that we are all incredibly different. And at different times, different circumstances, different times of crises, different personalities rise, to the fore. And our strength as a species is that there's so much diversity. Now, what that means is that in times of peace and stability, some personalities like Shackleton's, or like some of the people who would have been French resistance fighters during the occupation,
sure,
they don't fit into normal society. And I think my father was actually one of those people, always sort of chafing against discipline and being called a maverick and an
rebel,
a contrarian.
Yeah.
But in times of crisis, those are the ones when everyone who's not a contrarian is kind of sitting at home and keeping the curfew that the Germans have given you when they marched into your country in 1941.
Or that the government gave you during COVID.
Well, there are all sorts of parallels. But at different moments of crisis, you need those extraordinary characters. And people like Shackleton had to make their own adventures, I think, in times of without crisis.
Another thing that makes this book really interesting to read, and I can't tell people enough good reasons to pick it up and take a look. There's so many interesting things that you throw in here that absolutely have nothing to do with Shackleton.
Right.
I mean, I didn't know that Berserk and the Berserkers, who were, of course, the kind of elite fighting men of the Norse, the Viking Empire, the Viking conquerors that came on their longboats. The Berserkers were these crazy guys who would go up in the front. They would literally lose their minds. They're probably high on something, but they were fearsome beyond belief. And the term berserk we still use in English today, but it actually comes from bear shirt.
From bear shirt, yeah. They would dress in bear skins to try and occupy the fighting spirits of the bear. The bear, used to be.
Bear is an interesting animal.
The bear's a very interesting animal. It used to be our great fear, our European ancestors' great fear. There was this beast that lurked in the darkness at the edge of the villages.
It was the only big beast in the Northern Hemisphere, really, that caused absolute terror. And bears are not afraid of people.
That's right. and they sort of look vaguely like people,
bipedal if they want to.
Bipedal, yeah, when you see them come, lurching towards you through the hazy darkness. And so there are all sorts of myths and terrors and fears around them. And long before the wolf was the thing in the fairy tale, it was the bear. And then what we did was, because we were so afraid of the bear, we went out of our way to tame it. And so bear baiting
still happens.
And what you have now is that the bear is the cuddly. We've domesticated it to the point where it's the cuddly teddy bear, and it's Paddington, and it's Winnie the Pooh, and like
we've totally emasculated and broken the bear down. But I mean, we've been obsessed with it to the degree that we've named 2 constellations after the bear as well.
And this is
Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, yeah.
And this is what Arctic means the place of the bear, because Arctos is the ancient Greek word for bear, and Antarctic actually means the place without the bear, right? Because you can't see
those constellations.
Ursa, and also there are no bears there. But the story of the bear is like, it kind of feels like that's the story of humanity. We have this terrible thing, this strong, powerful thing that's bigger than us. And so we spend all of our time making it small. And so we're bigger than it, as we've done turning into the teddy bear. And then we kind of have to look around for some other new challenge to overcome. So the bear was our first big challenge. And then it became the natural world, and now it's space, I guess.
I suppose technology also.
Yeah.
A lot of people are struggling with that monster. Yeah. So what about the other people who were on this expedition? Because we talked a little bit about Shackleton, and I'd like you to go into more detail about the kind of personality that this guy had.
Yeah.
But all these people whose lives he effectively saved with some really solid leadership, in any other situation, he would have been considered a tremendous winner.
Yeah.
And I think what your book does is it largely rehabilitates some of his reputation. Because again, unless you're really, really interested in this stuff, it's not lying around for people to just assimilate like on Google.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of novel ideas, theories, research, evidence brought to bear here.
Shackleton's he's quite a good role model for leadership in organizations, because
you're going to be asked to do talks now in those boardrooms that you hate. You will.
The well-named
so tell us
boardroom.
What the leadership skills of Ernest Shackleton were in 5 minutes. Summarize it in 10 points.
Yeah.
Put a PowerPoint together.
Do you have any takeaways? What are the takeaways?
You give us the elevator pitch on Shackleton. Oh, Jesus.
Oh, no.
Go on.
But what he did was he had a ship full of incredibly mismatched and unsuited people.
Rabble.
Yeah. He had some of the scum of the Bristol docks.
Right.
He had some scientists who'd never been to sea before. He had some sort of weird youngsters who just wanted to run away to sea and have an adventure. And none of them got along together very well. But they were suddenly thrown into a circumstance where they had to be in very tight confines in this wooden ship through a 6-month period where they're frozen into the ice, and the sun never comes up, and the temperature never raises much above minus 35 degrees. And then they have to go through all this physical activity. So what he did was he bonded them together without hugging, kissing, singing,
they weren't
holding
doing
hands.
A drum circle.
They were not doing a drum circle. They didn't do any team building exercises. They didn't have any breakaway groups.
Good, yeah.
But what he did was he recognized the character of each man. He sort of watched them quite closely, and the ones that needed a little bit of a pepping up, he would ask them personal questions, or he'd ask them to do him a favor, and they'd feel a little bit useful. The ones that just wanted to be left alone, he'd happily leave alone. And he kept an eye out for the sort of grumblers and complainers, and the ones what he had a particular dislike for were the people who insisted on their legal rights under the ship's charter. And he would know.
This was survival. You
exactly.
What theoretical nonsense are you pulling out of your book of rights now?
One of his sailors wanted to go on strike when they were walking across the ice. It wasn't in his contract that he had to pull his rations behind him across the ice back to land on a sled, and so he didn't want to do it anymore. And so Shackleton sort of took him aside and explained, some of the realities of life, and ended off his very persuasive conversation by saying, and also, if you don't pick up the harness and pull it, I'm going to shoot you, which worked for him. And so Shackleton had this ability to give people what they needed and no more, and to not give them what they didn't need, which is something that not very many managers are good at these days, I think.
Well, getting the best out of people is a real talent, and it's a skill that some people just they're very acute observers, which is something you picked up there about him. But also, there's sort of people who realize that people have different needs.
Yeah.
And I think that this is what's so wrong in the corporate world, is that people are all tarred with the same brush.
Yeah.
Or expected to have the same qualities.
That's right, and even some of the new orthodoxy of everyone being different. Everyone has to be different in exactly the same way.
So you mentioned diversity earlier, and you were saying one of the best things about humanity is that we do have those outliers, those contrarians, those people who stick out and do different things and just on principle rebellious.
Yeah.
But obviously, diversity is only really good if you have values that you can all accept our common values.
Yeah.
So in this case, survival is the thing. Yeah. We're all buying into that. So even though you're all expected to have different qualities, do different things, need different things,
100%.
You must be attuned to the fact that we are on a mission here to keep living and to make it back to civilization. If they didn't have that in common, diversity wouldn't have helped at all.
That's exactly right. And he imposed certain values over and above that, and one of them being optimism. No one was allowed to complain, and at a certain point,
what would South Africans of 2023 do if we weren't allowed to complain? That's what we're the best at. Us and the British, actually.
It's true.
Oh.
And he would scapegoat and chastise anyone that he discovered complaining, anyone who had gloomy prognostications about the future. At one point, he went to the extreme of forbidding the cook to give extra rations because he knew it would make them feel like they were being coddled, that they needed their spirits raising. On another occasion, when the winter was setting in and all of the seals and the penguins had disappeared, and so there was no fresh food to come, the guy in charge of stores was suggesting, well, maybe we should lower the rations but to make sure we can last the winter. And he wouldn't do that either, for fear of making people afraid. And so it's a delicate balance between practical considerations and psychological, which he was always adjusting, which is an unbelievable skill.
How do you account for optimism in your own life? Because there are people who will call me a blind and stupid optimist sometimes. I just don't think that there's any really conceivably decent way to live. If you're not optimistic, you may as well just give up. And I mean, there's a healthy dose of cynicism in all of us, right? And there should be, unless you're an idiot. I mean, there are people who have very, 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 very low IQs, are tremendously optimistic, but they don't realize, like, the stove is hot and you'll burn it if you touch it and shit like that. But how do you account for it in your own life? And are you, because you don't strike me as being an outwardly optimistic person.
I think I am, and I think I am.
It's not an insult.
No, I know. But it's one of the themes of the book. Shackleton was an optimist, and I think I'm an optimist in the same way. Which isn't, when we have these conversations today about climate change or whatever it is, we get polarized into these two camps. You're either a mad optimist, which turns to kind of denialist. I don't look at anything. I don't care about it. It's all going to be fine. Or you're some kind of a mad pessimist where it's too late. Everything's over. The only thing I can possibly think of to save the world is to throw some orange chalk onto the Wimbledon Central Court. Right?
Yeah, we were talking about those people just before you came on.
Right. It's nuts.
I'll glue my hands to the runway of Hamburg Airport because the world is going to end anyway. So It's the mad apocalyptic denial.
You'll know where I am.
I think we get you. Yeah.
So
you're somewhere in between.
So Shackleton's version of optimism, which I think is mine as well, is that yes, circumstances being what they are, the only possible way to live and the only possible way to make a difference and to survive is to do whatever you can think of doing and to have some kind of faith in human agency, right? That if human agency got us into whatever situation you might think is the case, then human agency can get us out of that. And what Shackleton would do is whatever he could think of doing. And that carrying on was the most important thing. And he didn't always make the right decisions. Sometimes they went walking off in the wrong direction, and sometimes they were, they were bad strategic decisions. But what was important was not stopping and giving up and despairing and protesting and complaining. It was doing the best thing you can think of doing until you can think of something better, and then happily switching course.
I think it's also worth just noting here that he'd been on 2 or 3 previous expeditions before Endurance.
Yeah, well, and that's a very good
Nimrod
example.
And Discovery, right?
That's right. Yeah, he went with Scott on Discovery, and then he had his own expedition on the Nimrod, and he had held the record for being the furthest south. And he had walked with a couple of men, and they'd come within a few days' march of reaching the South Pole. And he made the calculation that they could definitely get there, but they could not get back again alive. And it's a mark of his optimism that he said, I'm going to rather turn around and go back again. And that looks like pessimism. Oh, I can't make it there. Yeah. I've given up. No, he went there and came back knowing that he could go again or he could do something else. Whereas Scott got to the same position. And Scott, who was a pessimist, actually went on to the South Pole, got there second, and died coming back. And it's that kind of, there's a paradox in that, because it looks like the guy who just keeps on going no matter what must be the optimist. But no, it's because he's focused on this finite goal and can't realize that there are other that real optimism is finding a way to keep on going, even if it's not in optimal conditions.
And in American politics now, they would say that you are. What do they say? It's when you keep changing your goals. Flip-flopping, right? But of course, this is different because.
That's a weird thing about Americans. Well, it's one of the weird things about Americans. Yeah, flip-flopping is one of the worst things you can accuse a person of. But it kind of seems like you'd want somebody who changes their mind when circumstances
if, for example, you discovered that there weren't weapons of mass destruction, wouldn't the best thing to be to flip-flop and say, well, let's rather just withdraw those men? And
turns out I thought there were, but no, let's not go there.
Or maybe when you discover that there isn't, an off-ramp to the Ukraine-Russia situation, that maybe sending cluster bombs is not the best idea. If you flip-flopped on that, we'd be okay with it.
When circumstances change, it seems like a
intelligent people change
sane response to come up with a different idea.
So how did it all end for Shackleton after all of this? Because again, we talk about the way that his reputation has trickled down. And I said that you've done a great job here of, in some ways, rehabilitating his reputation. But how did it end for him after that? He went back, and then it was the First World War, which was still very much on the go.
Shackleton brought all of his men back. He wasn't sufficiently healthy to go to the war. He had a problem with his heart. Which makes his exploits on the ice even more remarkable. Yeah. And he knew that he had something wrong with his heart, and so he never let any doctors examine him, because he knew that he wouldn't be passed for a medical. So he went around. He tried to do. He had a posting to South America where he was trying to be in charge of propaganda for the Allied war effort. And finally, the war ended, and he was left washed up in the shores of history, and with nothing to do. And he was one of those people who just didn't fit in society. He was no good at business. He was no good at politics. People liked him, but it just wasn't his element. And he gathered up another expedition. He still hadn't paid off all of his debts on the Endurance expedition, but he managed to scrounge together the money.
Sure.
And he sent out word to all of these men who'd been through this terrible experience and said, I'm going back to the South Pole.
How about it?
How about it? And Frank Wild, who was in Africa, who was on a farm in Africa, dropped his plowshare and went straight back. And they
It's
came
almost
from
like
all
one
over
of those.
the world.
It's like one of those Greek mythologies.
It is exactly like
right
that.
where
Yeah.
you know Pheidippides runs into the town and he
That's
rouses the people, and then suddenly all the men who've been farming and being fathers and doing domestic things suddenly pick up their swords and old armor and dust it off.
Exactly.
And off they go.
Agamemnon comes along and says,
Right.
"Chaps, we're going to go get Helen back." It's
Right.
like, yes,
It's an
yes,
adventure.
because you're our leader. Yeah. So
Do you think, by the way, that's a personality thing?
Yes, that
Do you
is.
think adventurers are a certain kind of personality?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that those personality types are the ones that come out in sometimes antisocial ways when adventure is not available. And so he goes back. He gets this expedition together, and his men come. They rally around him. You know, some of them with toes missing from the
Previous
from frostbites, and they go, and he sails off. And there's no clear plan of what they're going to do. They're just going to go down to Antarctica and find an adventure. And they go down and they get to South Georgia, and they head out. And just before the ship sails off to Antarctica, Shackleton writes in his journal, "It's great to be here under the Antarctic skies again." His last line in his journal is, "I'd looked out and I saw a single gem-like star shining and reflecting on the bay." And he goes to bed and has a massive heart attack and dies in his cabin, floating on this bay, just on the eve of his last great adventure. And he's about to be taken back to be buried in England, and his wife sends a message saying, "No, that's where he belongs.
Really?
He should stay in the Antarctic." And so the boat turns around and goes back and to South Georgia, and he's buried there on a hillside overlooking the old whaling bay.
There are a lot of the guys who were on that endurance expedition who never spoke about it.
Yeah, that's right. In fact,
and the second officer never said a word about it in his life post the expedition, right?
Yeah, that's
and I
right.
mean,
He
you
was
must have
called
tried to track down family and try to find out information.
Indeed, and I spoke to the son of one of the members of the expedition. I spoke to him last week, actually, in Cape Town. And I said to him, what was it like? Your dad was this great adventurer. He'd been there, unlike my dad also told me he'd been away, and but you actually had the photographs to prove it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, it's like the rest of that generation, the ones that went to war, the ones that were in prisoner of war camps, the ones that fought in North Africa. He would say, yeah, I was on the boat, and I was with Shackleton, and well, what was it like, Dad? Well, it was quite cold, but then we came home again, and that generation didn't talk about
their
feelings and their trauma.
They didn't talk about their feelings, but they didn't dare boast or be braggadocious. That would have been hopelessly socially inappropriate. Right?
That's exactly right.
You would have been shunned.
Yeah. They would all say, "No, well, that guy was heroic. I just did my duty. I was just there. I just tried not to let anyone down."
That's the sort of language.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. Do you think we still have people like that in the world?
I'm sure we do. We just don't hear them on social media. Yeah. So the voices we hear are the people who are braggadocious, the ones who are telling you what they did last night and what they think about this and that. And so I think in that era, humility and sort of quiet duty was expected and respected. But now all we do is we amplify the crasser voices.
And do you have, after doing this work and producing this book, do you have some kind of yearning to do something truly outrageously adventurous yourself, even dangerously adventurous?
I actually don't. I, as a young fella, I always thought, I must go out and prove myself, test myself against the world, do something magnificent so that I can boast about it afterwards. But actually, I think I'm finding adventure in other ways that aren't life-threatening, but that are kind of
infinite game stuff.
Infinite games, exactly, and moving out of comfort, I find that more exciting, or as exciting and as adventurous as climbing up a mountain.
And when it's very, very cold, like it was last week, do you think of these people often?
I do, and I feel ashamed
that you're complaining with your
that I'm
heater or your
complaining with
blankets
me.
or-
Frank Wild said, he after he came back from the ice, he said, I'm never going back to the cold again. And he went to Malawi where he worked. He says sometimes on in the 45-degree heat while he was plowing his field, and he'd be tempted to complain about the heat, he'd remember the ice, and would carry on going. And I think, man, those guys, I'm not like them, and I wish I was.
I can't think of a better place to end it. That's beautiful. It's poetic. It's as great as the book. Perhaps not as great as the book, but it's close. So here it is. It's called Finding Endurance: Shackleton, My Father in a World Without End by Darrel Bristow-Bovey. Do yourself a favor. Pick this up. You will not stop reading, and you will love every bit of it. Thank you so much.
What a great conversation. Thank you.
Great to see you, my friend. And we'll catch up around your next book in 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. In the meantime, get that house built in Greece, please. We've got things to do.
I'm building the Gareth Cliff wing.
There we go. I love it. Darrel Bristow.